Hello fellow musicians and engineers. Today we're simply going to look at some apps and ideas that can help us increase our productivity. Sitting at a computer goes hand in hand with music these days, so any increase in productivity is always welcome. It's probably going to be of most use for people with Mac or Hackintosh desktop machines, but perhaps some of the ideas can be used on laptops or Windows machines as well. Let's start with monitors. As you can see in my setup here, I have an ultra-wide monitor which is amazing for editing in Pro Tools or transcribing in Sibelius using panorama mode. It's only 1080p ultra-wide, but it still gives the extra horizontal pixels that make working on what is essentially linear media much easier. Before that, I had dual monitors, and now they are set off to either side. Having all three is great, but honestly a bit over the top. However, I think a dual monitor setup is 100% worth it, and I've been on at least dual monitors for 10 to 12 years now. This combination works well for me. I can have a nice wide edit window in the middle, with mix window on the right and mixed notes on the left. This is a much faster method of working rather than having to switch windows. In fact, even just having a tablet for mixed revisions is totally worth it. This brings us nicely onto the first app that I'd recommend, and that is Rambox. Rambox is a totally free workspace organizer which I use for all communications. I talk with clients, students, and receive mixed revisions from a range of different places, and Rambox groups them all together really well. I can see my notes and my calendar as well, so keeping this on my far left monitor is almost worth this monitor alone. But even without the space, totally recommend giving it a spot on that highly coveted startup items list with your machine. Next up is my trackball. I get not everyone is a fan of trackballs, but I've grown to love mine, and I would definitely recommend at least a mouse with some extra buttons. The Kensington Trackball software allows you to change button, pointer and scrolling functions, and the one I change is the button configuration. You can change what the 3 extra buttons do on a per app basis, which is just fantastic, or also set combination buttons. However, I have found that using this slows down the click input by a few milliseconds, totally ruining my experience on the timeline. Here's an example of that. I currently have my top right set to escape in Pro Tools to scroll through the tools, and top left set to suspend all groups. You can of course set them to anything you think will help you work better. In Sibelius, I have top right set to keypad. I always close it without thinking, and I'm not that much of a Sibelius whiz to have that keyboard memorized. I have top left set to change note heads to rhythm slashes. Nice. Keyboard Maestro is an app that allows extra control of your machine from a variety of triggers. It's a very advanced program, but there are some useful things that I am doing with it at the moment. The first one we'll talk about is using MIDI devices to trigger applications. On my desk I have my Impact LX49 controller, and on the top right it has 8 pads which I never use. I play my drums using the keyboard keys.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is rock and roll.
So, I have the 4 keys set to open or switch to my most used apps. Pro Tools, Melodyne, RX7, and then the 4th one opens the Finder window. This is a workflow I use every day, exporting files from Melodyne and RX and dragging them back to Pro Tools. You can also assign shortcuts that aren't usually available in apps, and I've used one to give me an export shortcut in Melodyne and another to show the audio effects window in Transcribe. I've also taken a couple from a group of Pro Tools shortcuts by John Douglas, and the link to those is in the description of the video. One opens Massey DRT, which I use a lot, and another toggles the clip gain line. The next one I'm particularly proud of, and it's a macro that will open Piano Tech 5 if I play my controller with no other audio apps open. When I'm just chilling or reading something online, I always reach out to my keys to play, and this will automatically open Piano Tech if any of my audio apps are currently closed and I press any C note on the controller. Finally, I have one more shortcut, and that is based on what is called a USB device trigger. When I insert my iLock back into my machine, Pro Tools will open. Simple but really cool. You can set up more triggers to do with device attachment or removal if you'd like. For instance, if you have a backup drive, you could set up a macro to automatically start backing up when the drive is attached. Or if you have a USB mic for voiceover, you could automatically open the record voiceover window in Final Cut Pro when you plug it in. The possibilities are just crazy in this application, to be honest. The only downside being it costs money. Comes out just a hair under £35. Finally, let's look at some standalone apps that are free and very handy for those working with audio. The first is XLD. XLD is a free media encoder and CD ripper, which I use to generate MP3 versions of masters. It can do other formats as well. I just find the MP3 export in particular from Isotope Ozone to be absolutely terrible. They sound a lot worse to my ears, sometimes with very audible distortion and artifacts compared to the encoder in XLD. Once XLD is installed and configured, I just right-click any files that I need and then open with XLD. This then encodes them and places them in the same folder. Another app that goes hand in hand with XLD is an app called Kid3, which is an advanced tagger for media files. When mastering, I like to embed artwork and complete tags to all my files if possible. Kid3 is a great little app for this. And that's it, that's all the main things that I use to help improve my workflow. If you've got any more tips, feel free to leave them below in the comments, and I'll see you next time.